So
Yeah.
presently I don't have permission to share the screen. So maybe you will have. Okay, you are sharing the screen. Okay.
Yeah, I'm sharing the screen.
Okay.
Okay. So the next lecture will be delivered by Dr. Ratnakar Mahajan. So I'll be happy to introduce about him. So in fact, he is my senior to PhD at IIT Bombay. So Dr. Ratnakar Mahajan is currently working as a technical head at McAfee India Limited. So he's completed his PhD from IIT Bombay, and he has also contributed to various guidelines such as IRC 34, IRC 56, IRC 113, IRC 89, IRC SP 116, and IRC SP 113. So he has worked as an engineer, so providing design and drawing services to McAfee South African and Indian subsidiaries, which involves conceptualization of the solution and detailed designs related to the geotechnical and hydraulic works sectors. So he has significant and diverse experience in various civil engineering fields, which include soil reinforcement, geotechnical centrifuge modeling, instrumentation, pseudostatic earthquake analysis, ground improvement, retaining structures, slope stability, river training, so channel lining, and rock fall protection. So he has been associating with the prestigious projects in India and abroad. Is also few of them are successfully completed, and is also extensively associating with several of the projects in India. So currently he is involved in R&D works for McAfee at a global level. So he's the global head. So he also has academic experience. So he has carried out research on centrifuge model studies on geosynthetic reinforced soil slopes and published several papers in various reputed international journals and conferences. So I now leave the floor to Dr. Ratnakar Mahajan. So I'm giving share. Yes, Dr. Ratnakar, we can share now. We can.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Hemant. So I hope my screen is visible.
Yes.
So very good morning to one and all. For the sake of saving the bandwidth, I'll be putting my video off because I'm connected through a mobile hotspot, hoping that there will be a good clarity of voice. Okay. So today I'm going to talk or basically show the application of geosynthetics in landfills. So, in landfills, there are a lot of applications, but looking at the time which is available, as well as, going in some portions, I want to go a little deeper. So I'll be restricting myself, let's say the bottom lining and the drainage part, and touching on reinforced soil structures. Other parts I will be just briefing, but not going in detail. So, due to rapid urbanization, there is increase in the waste production. So I know, you will get the numbers of how much amount of waste is getting produced every day. And, typically in urban areas, those who live near the outskirts of these, cities, you will face issues of these landfills, which may be probably few kilometers away from the city, and now the cities have grown up and we are going closer and closer. So these landfills, of course, require secure, stable, and properly designed engineered landfill. This is the requirement. Now there are different materials and ways you can design these landfills. I will be restricting myself to use of geosynthetics. How exactly we can use geosynthetics, and typically you will find some benefits of using geosynthetics in landfill. These geosynthetics are used in landfills worldwide. So I would say now a lot of experience has been gained in this area. I think as far as India is concerned, I think there is a good scope for adopting this geosynthetics, because the adoption of geosynthetics, especially in engineered landfills, is less in India. Even the engineer landfill itself has a big scope totally in the Indian context. So this is, I would say, a most organized way of disposal. We will call it as the landfill. And one of the key, I would say, the area what has to be focused on basically managing the landfills. Now, when we look at the government of India looking at these landfills is a little different, like the energy production is being looked after as well as the management of landfills is looked after. But you will hear from various speakers like how economical, viable about these energy productions as well as, managing. So personally, I feel the disposal of this waste in a proper manner is still required. That is to be done, and surely these landfills will be becoming important. When we are looking at these landfills, we need to take care of this. I would say contamination of the environment, which could be in the form of contamination of groundwater, it could be contamination of soil, it could be air, So the aim of the landfill is to avoid this contamination typically of all these 3-4 parameters what I have mentioned. And for this, of course, you will have some linings. Typically, you would say a bottom lining system, a cover or top lining system, and there will be a collection system for the liquid that is getting generated in landfill, typically a leachate that is being referred as. So if we look at the landfill, so this is the view of a landfill, I would say a sketch. So you will have a waste which is getting dumped in either above ground or little below ground, depending on the site characteristics and terrain. So when we are putting this solid waste, typically you will require some liners at the bottom to contain these waste inside this landfill area, so that the contamination is not there, I would say a minimal, least possible. And as you put this solid waste in this area, you will require some temporary covers also. So what is this temporary cover is like, when you are dumping this solid waste, you may not achieve this total height in short period of time, but it over number of years. So in between the layers of the solid waste, let's say we are dumping a solid waste of today, tomorrow, let's say a week's time, then you attain certain height, and every day you may cover it with soil so that there is the odor is not coming, as well as if you are expecting the working in monsoon, because during monsoon we cannot stop this waste to be generated, it will be continuously generated. So when we are putting this solid waste in a landfill, you need to cover this waste with the temporary covers. These temporary covers could be in various forms, typically plastic sheets, typically engineered plastic sheets, or tarpaulin, something like that, so that the whatever rain is there, it doesn't directly go in the solid waste and shall not generate much of the leachate. So that is a best practice to do. So this is a photograph I took from landfill site, I would say near urban area, outskirts of Mumbai. So it's not actually Mumbai, but outside the Mumbai, where the way if the solid waste is being put and the kind of leachate getting generated, you can see here. So here, this kind of situations to be tackled. Of course, like there will be a lot of gases getting generated, methane, CO2, once the solid waste starts decomposing. So of course, the kind of leachate, the kind of gases getting generated will depend on the characteristics of the solid waste itself. So there are a lot of risk of uncontrolled landfill. When I say uncontrolled landfill, like it's an identified site where you dump this solid waste in a manner which is not being, I would say, regulated or controlled well. So there are possibilities of surface and groundwater contamination, the leachate getting leaked and spreading over the area, bad odor, of course, air pollution because of migration of gas into the soil and air. I don't know how many of you have noticed, but I have seen I have visited, I would say, quite some good landfills, and I observed the issue of burning. So just to name, like for example, I visited landfill in the past. I visited a couple of other landfills, and I found there was burning of the solid waste. And when we were discussing why the solid waste is getting burned, what is the reason? So typically during nights when the tippers bring this solid waste and dump, usually there will be workers working, and some people have habit of smoking, so they may put some cigarette butts, or small fire being put there, unintentionally, intentionally, and the solid waste is such that once it starts burning, you cannot stop it. And typically in landfill you will have this burning going to the quite depth. So when the smoke was coming, and when we wanted to check whether it is burning happening at the surface level or what, so when we tried to remove this solid waste with the help of JCB, we noticed that there was a lot of fire below that top layer. So uncontrolled burning is another risk. Landslip of unstable waste. So this is again another issue, like because of the constraint of the land availability, the local bodies are forced to put this solid waste at steep angles because of a lot of issues. Could be difficulty in getting the land, or even if the land is there, there are some legal issues. Many things could be there. Because of that, the solid waste is put at certain inclination, and because of, let's say, some reasons, could be heavy rainfall, or could be a decomposed waste at the bottom, there are possibilities of the landslip. So maybe a few years back we noticed a huge landslip happened in landfill near Delhi area. So this kind of risks are always there when we are doing the uncontrolled landfill. So how do we look at this landfill, and how can we control the movement of these liquids, gases, and keep them in a controlled environment? I would say the waste is getting confined in particular place. So there could be cap barrier, top lining, or top cover. So this is basically, you have a landfill, you have a base barrier. Here you are putting the waste, and then you are putting capping. The capping could be temporary or permanent. So once the capacity of landfill is over, then you put a permanent top lining. When you are filling this landfill routinely, there you will have some temporary covers. So the purpose of this top lining systems is basically to control the moisture infiltration in the waste. So the moisture could be probably due to the rainfall. Collect the gas. So once the landfill is sealed, on a top cover is being put, it will generate a lot of gases. Collect them, prevent the odors and sources of disease. So once you have the top cover, you control the bad odor getting spread, and it is contained in the landfill itself. Meet the erosion, aesthetic, and other functional areas. So once you have the landfill being exhausted its capacity, you will put a top lining system, and we may put some greenery on top, may develop some recreational facilities on there. So that could be the requirements. The bottom, basically, when we are looking at the bottom lining system, the purpose of this bottom lining system, of course, is to minimize the escape of leachate into the soil or foundation layer, and prevent the contamination of the groundwater. So you can say bottom lining system, side cover, and top lining system. These are basically, you can say, three types of lining system. And here you can have conventional lining system, and alternatively a geosynthetic lining system. So why these geosynthetic materials have been used is basically, it is being noticed that they are easier to handle, and low cost installations are possible. They are of higher and constant quality. So just to give an example, if we talk of clay liner. So you will need to have a consistency of the clay throughout the landfill. And you know, the clay, what we are going to get is a natural material, and we will be borrowing it. So there is a processes involved. For that, of course, you will need to ensure the quality, consistent quality. Whereas if you use alternative materials which are factory made, so they are produced in a controlled environment where you can check the quality routinely and you will get a constant quality throughout the production. Then of course, when we have these landfills maybe near soft soils, or let's say coastal area, could be area where prone to settlements. This provides a good resistance for settlements. Overall, you can say you can increase even landfill volume. So that I will cover in the reinforced soil structure, how we can increase the volume of this landfill. And then of course, because of the reduction in the consumption of natural materials, you will have the reduction in the carbon footprint as well. So this landfill lining system, typically you may use compacted clay liners at the bottom. We use gravel layers for the drainage purpose. So typically the compacted clay liners could require a thickness of, let's say, 1 meter or more. It depends on the permeability of the soil what we are going to use, of course, based on the regulations. What are the regulations of that particular area? These geosynthetics, of course, offers I would say less thickness, so you have a good amount of space being utilized for additional volume of the solid waste. So if we look at this tapping system, so you have a waste, okay, and let's start from bottom system. Okay. So you have a soil, and then you put compacted clay. Let's say I have shown here 0.9 meter thick, but as I mentioned, it will depend on the regulations. Sometimes you may go for even higher thickness, 1.5 meter. So here clay or amended soil being put in layers to compact, followed by a layer of geomembrane. So this is basically a membrane made from a high density polyethylene. This high density polyethylene is basically being produced by the crude oil. You have crude oil which is being processed to get the required fuel. The rest of the part is processed further, and that's what you get this different polymers like polyolefins in that high density polyethylene is there. So basically it's a engineered plastic sheet, and it comes in a thickness ranging from 0.75 millimeters to 2.5 millimeters. Typically in landfills, the minimum thickness goes up to 1.5 millimeters. Some countries like Europe, they go for minimum 2.5 millimeter. Then this geomembrane, on top of that geomembrane, you will have a protector layer. So, this is a plastic sheet. So it is quite possible that it may get punctured. So you have the compacted clay, and if there are some protrusions, or when you are putting the leachate collection layer, typically gravel layer. So these gravel or sand layers can puncture this geomembrane, and it could be a source of leachate getting down in the clay layers or further ground. To stop that, you need to provide a protection. So how you provide a protection? So here you provide a layer of textile. So you have a textile. Now these textiles are typically manufactured by majorly, I would say, two processes. One is the woven geotextile, other is the non-woven geotextile. So for the cushion purpose, typically a non-woven geotextiles are preferred. So when we say non-woven geotextile, basically you have the fibers. Typically polypropylene will be preferred in this application because it's from polyolefin group, which has a better resistance compared to polyester, typically in such aggressive environment, because landfill you will have a very aggressive environment. So you have a number of fibers. These fibers are put in a machine, and there are a number of needles that basically punch these number of fibers together and you get a fleece, typical of fleece, and that fleece is being put through a rollers, and finally you get a fabric. Now this non-woven geotextile again can come in variety of thicknesses, ranging from 0.2 millimeter to could be 2 to 3 millimeters. So basically, if you have a thicker and stiffer geotextile, it will provide a good protection layer for a geomembrane, followed by a leachate collection layer. So typically, I would say a drainage layer could be a 1 feet, or as per you can design it as per the site conditions. So that's there. And on top of this leachate layer, you will need to provide a filter and separator. So why this filter and separator is required? Like when you have leachate getting generated, it can bring some fine particles along with it. So in order to avoid the drainage layer to get clogged, you may put a filter and separator layer. So conventionally, you can go for a sand filter, typically invented sand filter, or alternatively, you may go for a geotextile. So in further slide, I will show what are the alternatives for each of these layers in terms of geosynthesis. This is what a bottom liner system. When it comes to the capping, you will have like first the waste, which is there on top of the waste. You will put a gas collection layer, typically again a gravel layer, which will allow the gas to pass through, followed by a separation layer and a clay layer. So you need to separate the clay and the drainage layer here. For that, you need to provide a separator, typical separator, so that there is no mixing of the clay and the gas connection layer, typically a granular layer. On the top, of course, you will need a protector, I would say, again, a separator layer, followed by a sand drain, then a separator, and then a cover soil. The purpose of this soil is to promote the growth of vegetation, as well as the purpose of vegetation is to stop the erosion of the soil. So to stop the mixing of the sand and the soil and the bottom clay, you will provide here again a separator there. Again, this depends on part of the design, but this is really a nice combination. If you provide, you will have a good capping and bottom lining system. When we look at what are the alternatives for the conventional layer, so from bottommost, we'll say, let's say you have a clay liner, typically very low permeability clay to be used, 10 to the power minus 7, 10 to the power minus 8, 9, whatever you are able to get it, that will be the best suitable. Thickness ranging from let's say 0.6 meter to 1 meter based on the requirement. This can be used by GCL. GCL is called as a geosynthetic clay liner. So what is the geosynthetic clay liner? So you have 2 layers of a geotextile. You have 2 fabrics, typical textiles. In that you put bentonite. So the bentonite, what is being put inside is a very specific bentonite. It's typically a granular bentonite having good swelling characteristics. So the thickness of the GCL can be at the max, let's say 10 millimeter, not more than that. Then you have a geomembrane layer. As I explained, 1.5 mm, as per regulation, it could be 2.5 mm, followed by a protector layer. Typically, you may put a sand layer, or let's say the better would be a non-woven geotextile. A non-woven geotextile of, let's say, a good thickness would be a good cushioning, so that the geomembrane is protected, followed by a leachate collection layer of typically 1 feet. So this can be replaced by a drainage composite. So I will explain this drainage composite further. What drainage composite is. You have 2 layers of geotextile, and inside that you have a net or a mat. The purpose of this geotextiles is to allow the movement of liquid across the plane. So the geotextile will allow the movement of leachate in case of landfill, and will hold on any soil particles or maybe fine particles there. The purpose of the core or the mat is to allow the in-plane flow and carry this leachate to a location where it is required. So that's what a typical leachate collection layer would be, followed by a filter. So this filter would be again a non-woven geotextile which will again protect the the leachate collection layer from the contamination. Now, when it comes to the lining system, what we talked typically, let's say bottom lining system. So there is sometimes people refer as simple lining system or sometimes single lining system, and these single lining system or simple lining system are typically used for low vulnerable sites, or you would say pre-treated domestic waste. So you have a domestic waste and where you segregate it and you treat it somewhere, and then you put. Typically, you may go for this single or simple lining system. Whereas the other system is called as a double lining system. So this is basically you are providing two sets of linings, and these are provided for vulnerable sites or untreated waste or hazardous waste. So let's say you are talking of industrial waste. Let's say your the aluminum refinery, you are processing the bauxite, and the waste what is generated is basically red mud, which is very hazardous. And if you want to contain such kind of thing, you may go for a double lining system to have assurance that no hazardous material is going in the ground and contamination is there. So that's what, let's say vulnerable site. So you are on a site where probably you are expecting some movement, settlements, or you are not sure this lining would stay for a longer time because of the terrain or geology. You may go again for double lining system. So you have a choice that of this single or double lining system that you can put in there. So when you look at the landfill, there could be various requirements where this geosynthetics would be used. First, of course, the requirement is the waterproofing. Waterproofing means you don't want the leachate to go down. Second would be the leachate drainage. So what we talked about drainage layers. So use of geosynthetics as alternative materials in these drainage layers. Protection and separation. So this is geomembrane protection and separation. So whatever geomembrane you are putting for containing the liquid to protect it from any damage. So that's you can say use of geotextile. Filtration, so where you want to filter the leachate and only the liquid to go. So you will have a gravel layer, something like that, or drainage layers, which will take care of this filtration purpose. Sometimes you don't have much space to have the landfill, because landfill on the top you will have very flat slope because the characteristic of the waste itself. And if you have a solution, if you provide a steeper slope, something like this, so you may go provide the solutions for the, you can say, retention of the solid waste. So that could be one more requirement. Or you are in a very poor site condition where you want to improve the site's geological characteristics, you may use geosynthetics. Of course, all these applications, you can use the geosynthetics. So, according to European standard, when we look at, let's say, the capping is you have vegetation cover, a drainage layer, then a low permeability barrier layer, biogas or layer basically for collection of gas, a leveling layer, and a waste. So this is typically a capping system. And if you look at this drainage layer plus the gas layer and the top vegetation, the thickness could be around let's say 1.5 meter. Whereas if you use the geocomposite drains, GCLs, you may go for a thickness of 0.03 meters. So you say, you are saving almost 1.5 cubic meter of space per square meter of the surface area. You can say save, or you are creating, whatever the way you can say. Because one of the challenge you can ask to any municipal corporation, one of the challenge is how to handle this waste and how much waste can be handled in a minimum footprint. That is one of the requirements. So with geosynthetics, you will require you can create a greater space in the given design. Now let's look at the bottom lining and the drainage as well as the reinforced soil. Let me switch over to the other presentation. Okay, so here I will be touching on the bottom lining system, drainage layer, and the reinforced soil. So just to give you an idea about the what are the different bottom lining systems practiced in Europe as well as you can say USA. So typically you will find this is the top is the waste layer, followed by drainage layer. Then you have a mineral barrier. Mineral barrier is nothing but your basically a clay liner, what we talking, followed by natural soil. So you will find most of the cases you have a clay liner followed by geomembrane, then a drainage layer and the waste. But geomembrane is not common in all the cases. You will have some exceptions. You can see Belgium, Switzerland. Of course, this slide is little old, around 1997 or something. So maybe there are some updations we need to check. But what information I had was this. So here you will find the thickness of the mineral layer is varying, let's say 0.6 meter to somewhere 1 meter, or even like you look at the case of France, it's showing the 5 meter. And the permeability requirement of this mineral layer is 10 to the power minus 9 meter per second. So very, very low permeability is required. For example, you see the Italy case is around 1 meter thick mineral layer required, having this permeability of 10 to the power minus 9 meter per second. Then you have a drainage layer. Typically, this drainage layer, not much variation of thickness, 0.3 to 0.5 is what is being practiced. The geomembrane is there between the mineral layer and the drainage layer. So, as we discussed, it could be one layer or double layer, and it will depend on the type of waste, the treatment of the waste, and the local requirement. So, if we have to look at this bottom lining system, so you have a waste. This is the bottom portion of the landfill. You have a clay layer. Thickness could be 1 meter. So clay on the flat surface is fine. You can easily compact. But when you are going on the sides, which could be at an inclination, how you can compact this clay? It's very difficult. So they can be replaced with this geosthetic clay liner, GCL, typically referred as a GCL, which can be placed on the slopes very easily. The geosthetic clay liners comes in a roll form, and typical weight of these GCLs could be around 4 to 5 kg per square. So because of such high weight, the length of this roll is typically around 50 meters, and width could be around 2 meters to 4 meters, depending on the site requirement as well as, but usually it could go as wide as 4 meters. So in this, you will see there is two lines, dotted lines, top and bottom. These are nothing but the geotextiles, and in between you have the bentonite being placed in. So you have this geosthetic clay liner. Then the solid black line, what you see is nothing but a geomembrane. So the purpose of this geomembrane is basically to form a barrier for movement of any liquid inside this clay layer or GCL. These geomembranes are made up of high density polyethylene, and they also comes in the form of roll. The width of this roll can vary from, let's say, 4 meter to 7.5, 8 meters. Now, manufacturers have come up with very wide rolls up to 7.5 meters. So there will be a question: how can you have a watertight GCL or along this landfill, because the landfill could be of let's say 400, 500 meter wide? How you can put that roll? Do you have that 500 meter long roll? No, it's very difficult to handle such long rolls because of their weight. Again, it could be 1.5 to 2.5 kg per square meter roughly, these geomembranes, depending on the varied thickness. They come in a roll length of 100 meters or so. Width could be, as I explained, 4 to 7.5 meters. So there will be joints, and these joints are being treated by a process called as the welding. So this there are two types of welding. One is the hot wedge welding. Another is basically the welding done by rollers or fusion welding. So here basically you have the two plastic sheets, they are put on top of each other, and then you have the two hot rollers which roll on the top and bottom of this joint, and the temperature of these rollers are being set by a machine such a way that this top and bottom layers of the two layers of the geomembrane, they form a joint, proper joint. And there is a way to test this joint on the field itself. There are tests like tear test and the tension test of this joint, as well as there are tests to check the air tightness. So in these joints, you can put the air at high pressure and maintain it for certain time. So there are detailed methodology for installation of these geomembranes. So that's the layer of a geomembrane. Now these geomembranes may get punctured by placement of these gravels on top, or maybe you have the solid waste which can damage. So you provide a protective geotextile. Basically would be a non-woven geotextile on top, so that the geotextile acts as a cushion. At the bottom portion, you will have this gravel layer, which is a forming part of the drainage layer. Thickness, of course, will be depending on the amount of leachate we are going to generate, size of landfill. That is a separate design. So placement of this gravel layer on slope is going to be a challenge. So here you can use a geocomposite drain. We refer it as a MAC drain. These geocomposite drains typically come in a thickness ranging from 4.5 millimeters to around 20 millimeters. So the thicker the geocomposite drain, higher the capacity to carry the water in plane. If the water moves along this length, it's called in plane flow of this drainage composite will be very high, higher the thickness. Now this drainage composite again have two layers of geotextiles, top and bottom, and inside there is a core. This comes in again in roll form. The width of the roll could be 2 meters to 4 meters. Again, these are very heavy product, typically 1.2 kg per square meter, and the length of these rolls could be 50 meters. If you talk of this non-woven geotextile, they are very light. Here you can have 150 meter long roll, but here it would be only 50 meter long rolls. And this geocomposite drain, again, because of only limited width for 4 meters, joints along the length and across the length. So along the length, when we have to lap this geocomposite drain, you have additional geotextile. So for example, here I have shown this is a geotextile white color. This is a core. So what you see here, the pattern in the zigzag is basically a core, and then the white color bottom is a geotextile. So you have additional geotextiles on the sides of this geocomposite, which permits proper overlapping of the geocomposite drains, so that there is a proper continuity to carry the liquid top to bottom, as well as there are no possibilities of waste getting inside this core and clogging the geocomposite. Additionally, on the top of this the gravel layer, you can have a layer of geotextile. Typically, here you will have typically a high more opening, or say AOS of 600 microns or larger opening, and you will have typically a woven geotextile. So I will explain why it is so in the further slides. So the purpose of drainage layer in the simple lining system is to convey the drain or leachate. HDPE membrane, basically not less than 2 mm in Europe or 2.5 mm in Europe. The purpose is to contain the leachate. And typically the clay layer or mineral of low permeability layer 10 to the power minus 9. The purpose of this is basically forming the first barrier between the foundation soils and the solid waste. Now let's look at the composite or double lining system. So you have exactly the same thing as of single lining system of clay layer replaced by GCL on slopes. You have a geomembrane followed by typically a geotextile and then basically a geocomposite drain. Second, double lining system is basically you just repeat whole combination one more time. So a layer of GCL, a geomembrane, a geocomposite drain. Now the purpose of this additional layer of drainage and the membrane is basically, even if the one liner gets damaged, you will have a second, say, assurance for controlling the leachate. So the thicknesses, as I explained, will be more or less same, no change. It's only two layers are being put, and the purpose of the second layer is basically the bottom purpose of the second geocomposite drain is to check or detect any failures in the first lining. So is there any failures in there? Nowadays, now geomembranes have come up with advanced technologies which can be tested for their continuity. Even they, once they are buried, they can be checked. Are there any leakages or damages? That's the advancement being happened. So overall, use of geosynthetic materials in place of, or maybe as the natural layers, enables increase in the volume capacity of the waste storage. And most importantly, we are going for steepened side slopes. It's very difficult to use the natural materials clay to compact or the gravel layers to install, which this problem can easily handle by use of geosynthetics. There are many experimental and side experiences that show that when you are using, let's say this is non-woven geotextile, so randomly placed fiber, and this is a woven geotextile. So when we use these geocomposite drains in contact with the solid waste, typically these non-woven geotextiles are tend to clog. Whereas if you provide this woven geotextile for drainage composite, they perform better compared to the non-ones. So that is what the experience shows, and this is a very important part, which is usually get ignored by most of the people because of I would say, ignorance probably, or not knowing the subject. And for use of this geocomposite, you must use polyolefins based materials only because they have good resistance for acidic as well as alkaline kind of conditions. So as there will be very aggressive conditions, this polyolefin is preferred. Now coming to the drainage composite, so I want to just touch upon some detailed part of the drainage composite, which is not really that how a 0.6 meter thick or maybe a 1 feet thick drainage layer can be replaced by only few millimeters of a drainage composite. How it's possible? So let's go through this. So this drainage composite, has three components. So you have two geotextiles and a core. So these geotextiles could be changing like one non-one. So in this picture, what you see is this is a one geotextile on one side and non-one on other side. Here you will see basically both sides are non-one geotextile. Here you will see a different kind of core. You will see a kind of U or maybe W shape is here. It's a random punched net is there. So again, you don't always don't need these two geotextiles. You can have only one geotextile on one side like this. On other side, nothing is there. So it depends on the application. For example, you have a chamber to collect the leachate, and you need to provide a gravel layer around it. Instead of that, you can use this geocomposite drain only with one side geotextile. The other side could be in touch with the concrete wall of that chamber. Okay. Sometimes you want to avoid the use of two layers like geomembrane and a drainage composite. Instead of two layer, can it be combined together? Yes. That's why the name itself is a geocomposite, where you combine different layers of geosynthetics together. So you can have a geomembrane, core and geotextile together. That is also possible. So this is what a laminated geotextile forming watertight membrane. So there is a possibility of having a geocomposite drain, even with permeability on both sides, or impermeable on one side. So depending on the requirements, you can choose these geocomposite drains. They come in a wide range, like as I explained, around 2 to 4 meter plants. So typically wide geocomposite drains come from the Euro plants. The thickness range from 4 mm to 20 millimeters, and this can be actually customized based on the project requirements. So during manufacturing, there is a possibility to customize the thickness, the type of geotextile to be put, or geomembrane to be put. So that's possible. So let's look at this product's design. So you have this capping system. Let's say you are putting the two layers of the draining layers. The bottom one, let's say, is for the gas, and top one is for the liquid. So you may try to find out the amount of liquid which will flow through these layers by a simple equation, that is KAI, whereas K is the permeability of the mineral layer, or let's say a drainage layer. You can assume it, let's say, 10 to the power minus 3, but of course again it depends on your the type of material you are using in the draining material. And then cross-sectional area A. So for this case, if it is 0.5 meter thick, so you can have cross-sectional area of 0.5 meter square. And then I is the gradient related to the inclination of draining layer. So typically you can say hydraulic gradient. In case of slopes, that I could be just sine beta. Beta is the inclination of this draining layer with horizontal. So this once you know this flow through this drainage layer, we can now design this geocomposite drain. So when you have to design this geocomposite drain, you must understand the water flow capacity, which can be measured in the lab simulating the field conditions. So what are the field conditions? What do you mean by field condition? First is this geocomposite drain will be in contact with certain type of material. So just to give you an idea, let's say you have a geocomposite drain here. This is a geocomposite drain where it is in touch with, let's say, a GCL, which is in touch with the a ground layer, or a subgrade. On the other side, it has a GCL and solid waste. Whereas this geocomposite drain, it is in touch with GCL, geocomposite drain, GCL, and then the subgrade, and then you have solid waste here. So you have little different stiffnesses on this side. So you have different kind of surfaces. Even to make it simpler, let's say you are installing this geocomposite drain on a retaining wall or a leachate chamber. So you have a concrete surface on one side, other side you have the solid. So this is what we call the type of contact it is in touch. In the applied pressure, so you have the landfill. If you are using this geocomposite drain at the bottom, on the sides, or at different levels, you will have a different normal pressure coming on top. Hydraulic gradient. So whether you are using on the sides of the landfill or at the bottom or at the capping, so the hydraulic gradient will be different. So you must be able to estimate the water flow through this geocomposite at different conditions, which can be determined by a test procedure given EN ISO 1295 or ASTM P4716. So rigid to rigid contact, soft to soft contact, and soft to soft contact. Basically rigid soft contact. So that what I mentioned is the type of contact. So when you have, let's say, geocomposite drain between two rigid surfaces, this will define basically a rigid to rigid contact. So like GCD for leakage detection in landfills between two geomembranes. So if you are having two geomembranes, top and bottom, it could be a rigid to rigid contact. Or it is between shotcrete and structural arch of a tunnel, it could be rigid contact. Rigid soft contact could be if you are using this geocomposite behind retaining walls, or let's say capping layer. Basically you have a soil, and then the capping of the landfill, you have top soil and then a drainage layer. So that could be rigid soft contact. Or using in a roof garden. Soft to soft contact could be the draining crates, or let's say roadway, parking areas, different conditions. These different contacts would be there. So this is with which you can calculate the in-plane flow capacity of the drainage composite. So through this sketch, you will understand. You put a drainage composite here, to simulate the type of condition. Let's say you are simulating a rigid condition, you will put a steel platen. If you want to simulate a soft condition, you may put a rubber top and bottom. Then you have a facility to apply a normal pressure, which will be again determined based on site conditions. So you have this geocomposite being placed, proper surface conditions, then you put the normal pressure, and then you decide the gradient. So you know the difference in the head, that is delta H, and this L. So whatever is the hydraulic gradient you want to achieve, that you achieve. So you have a constant water flow here, you achieve, I would say, a laminar condition here, a constant flow, achieve this delta H, and then you measure the amount of liquid being passed through this composite to the in-plane flow or water flow capacity of this geocomposite. Of course, this capacity of this geocomposite drain will be different of same geocomposite at different normal pressures, because it is made up of a synthetic material. So 50 kPa, 100 kPa, 150 kPa. So thickness would reduce at higher pressures. So naturally, the in-plane flow rate reduces with increase in the pressure. The same case with the hydraulic gradient. Higher the hydraulic gradient, you have higher the flow through this geocomposite. Lower the hydraulic gradient, you have lower flow through it. Now, once you determine these flow rate in the field, there is a different possibility, like different flow in different hydraulic gradient. Still, you don't have to do the same test again. This is a formula given by Rimoldi in 1989. So you know the flow for a hydraulic gradient. One condition, you want to determine the flow for different hydraulic condition, let's say 2. So just simply square root of I2 by I1 into the Q. I1 will give you the flow at this different information. When you do the test in the laboratory, if you're doing at 20-degree temperature, if you're doing at different temperature, you need to apply a correction, simple correction for temperature and viscosity of the liquid. Now, coming to the very important part, does only this condition is enough to test and determine the flow through drainage composite? No, it's not enough. We need to understand this landfill would be there for a certain amount of time. This geocomposite to these pressures for time. So you need to account the effect of varied stresses and conditions over a period of time. So basically they are accounted by reducing the flow in the laboratory. This is the QL. Basically you get the flow in the laboratory, and you want to estimate the flow through this geocomposite for a long term, let's say 10 years, 20 years, 40 years, 50 years. How can you estimate this? So you get a flow through this composite in a laboratory that is being reduced by certain reduction factors. That is reduction factor for intrusion. So there are geotextiles. So you have a geotextile like this on the core. It will intrude in the draining core, which will reduce the cross section particularly. So that's a reduction factor for intrusion of a geotextile. Then reduction factor for compressive creep. This geocomposite will be subjected to the pressure over a period of time, constant period of time. There will be some reduction in the thickness because of the compressive stresses, or I would say compressive creep. That's a reduction factor for creep. Reduction factor for chemical clogging and biological clogging. So because of the leachate being flowing through, there are possibilities of chemical and biological clogging. Typically, in case of leachate, biological clogging is quite prominent, and it can further reduce the flow. So you need to estimate all these reduction factors by proper testing. I have just given a range of reduction factors for the geocomposite drains, what McAfee uses. So this is the range what we have tested in laboratory. We have these numbers. So this you can get it from the Poyner book also. If you refer book by Robert M. Poyner on geosynthetics, there is a specific chapter on the geocomposite grain. You will have range of this geocomposite grain. There is a very detailed chapter on how the type of core affects the performance of geocomposite, the type of geotextile. So you can perform additional crust test, compressive creep test to get these factors and decide. Then you can find out the equivalency of mineral layer and the geocomposite layer. So you know the flow through the layer, what we just calculated KIA, you know the available flow in the drainage composite. You can put additional factor of safety on top of that, and then you can do that. And part in doing this analysis is the value of this K. A is known. You know the A, you know I very much. K is a very important factor, and this is a sensitivity analysis being done for layer with different I value. Just see, this is 10 to the power minus 3, 5 into 10 minus 3, 1 into 10 minus 3. Just see the difference. So very much important is your K value. If you vary the inclination, you know that or the gradient, that not much variation, but here it's you have a quite variation when there is a change in the kernel. So this is very important that you must estimate proper K and do that. Important part is when we are looking at the flow through the gravel layer, Darcy's law is not immediately valid, because when you are having low gradients, you will have less turbulent flow. When you have high gradient, more turbulent flow. So it is necessary to apply a correction factor while doing these calculations. And typically, again, you can calculate the flow through this gravel layers. You can put additional factor of safety, and this is again a sensitivity analysis being done. And then you can calculate the minimum required flow and do this. Okay, so apart from what we have discussed about the drainage composite, typically in landfills, we need to take care, especially in cappings or even in bottom lining system, whatever leachate we are seeing, apart from the thickness of gravel layer equivalency, you need to add additional flow, typically from a rainfall. So you have some rainfall which is happening, and you can calculate the amount of water getting infiltrated in this. You can assume some coefficient of infiltration. Typically for the cappings, if you are using grass cover or simple soil, compacted soil, you can have different coefficients, and you can estimate the water, and you can add in that. Now moving towards the topic of retention, so when you have a landfill, typically, let's say this is a cross section of a landfill. Instead of the slope, if you want to just put a solid waste, you may have the footprint something like this, but if you put retaining structures, you can go for a steeper structure. So these reinforced soil structures can be used for steepening these landfills and reducing the footprint area. So basically it reduces your cost of land. This is the economical solution, and importantly, you can increase the landfill volume in given footprint of the landfill. And even sometimes you can use the waste itself as a fill material in the reinforced soil structures. If you want to use the waste itself as a part of the reinforced soil structure, you will have to follow a certain scheme. So you will have a reinforced soil. So this is a geogrid. You will have a vegetative soil, a fascia, and then you will have a waste. You will need to separate the waste and the vegetative soil by a proper, I would say, lining system, where first you will have a geomembrane. Here basically geosynthetic clay liner would be preferred, then followed by a geocomposite layer for grass connection, and then of course the outer layer, basically a drainage composite layer for the connection of this, I would say, for the liquids what you may want to connect. And then you have in situ vegetative soil, and then you have the reinforcing geogrid. So this is the combination. Even you can use the waste also. There are possibility to use this. So when we are doing this reinforced soil structures, what are the typical problems? Basically, confinement, embankment stability need to be checked, waste mass stability, and then of course when we are going to have a final profile or geometry being achieved, that stability, and most important is the settlement checks, because you will have this solid waste being there, and you can expect some settlements. Of course, when you are using the waste in these reinforced soil structures, you cannot use the waste coming from the urban area as it is, because you will have to use maybe a waste which is being there for period of time, and then you can put in there. So you can have slopes, you can use a reinforcement at the bottom, variety of possibilities are there. Let's say we're talking of a field slope where you want to put. So when you are putting this reinforcement, basically what you need to estimate is the mechanical strength of this geogrids, the stiffness and the durability. And most important, what is the bond between this solid waste and the or maybe the whatever field you are going to put and the reinforcing material. So when we are talking of this mechanical strength, we don't have to refer the short-term strength. So what exactly we talked about drainage composite. You have a flow in the lab, but you cannot use that flow as it is to determine the equivalency. You will need to estimate for long term. So same thing is for the geogrids. You need to estimate the long-term strength. So you test this geogrids in the lab, you get the short-term test, you apply some reduction factors, you get the long-term strength of the material. This long-term strength will be depending on the type of environment these geogrids are being put, the type of polymers, the temperatures they are exposed to. So very important is about the design temperature. When we are talking of a design temperature, here you need to estimate design temperature, which is typically not the ambient temperature, but it is lower than that. And then ISO TR 20432 gives the guideline how to arrive at this design temperature for reinforced soil structure. Typically, it is average of yearly air temperature and normal air temperature that for the hottest month. That's what you have to take. But for landfill, in landfill, the estimation would be required. Durability, of course, when we are putting this reinforcement in the soil, they will be damaged because of the construction, as well as when they are exposed to different kinds of chemicals, there will be some reduction. Apart from that, we need the bond between soil and the reinforcement, which will depend on the water, moisture content, and the compression or compaction of the materials. So what is the difference between typical reinforced soil structure and that are built for the landfill? So here in landfills, you will have to expect large settlements compared to the typical reinforced soil structures. The temperatures could be as high as 40-50 degrees. Typically, normal reinforced soil which we use for highways, it could be 25 to 30 degrees design temperature, not more than that. Durability issues need to be checked carefully, kind of environment it will be used, and then the moisture content need to be properly estimated. Pressures. Apart from that, we need to take care of the construction issues and long-term problems, typically due to poor water pressure, and in the fascia you may not be able to compact it properly. So very important part, if you are using the reinforced soil structure in the landfill, you will need to use a cohesive material in the front, because you don't want that leachate or the solids or through. Because in typically reinforced soil structure, you may use a free draining field, but here you will need to use a cohesive field. So you need to understand the behavior at drained and undrained condition. So careful geotechnical analysis needs to be done. You may put reinforcement which has additional capacity of drainage. So there are the products available where you can combine the drainage and the reinforcement together. So how it typically functions is you have this soil being put, and then you have this movement of water, in the reinforced soil mass, and as the geogrids have additional capacity of draining itself, so as the time passes, you know, you will have a gain in shear strength because there will be reduction in it's happening. So that's the advantage of using a draining kind of geogrid. Itself as the filling material, you will need the best. And believe me, you cannot take the references from the literature because each site may have a different kind of waste combination, could be different, behavior could be different. So you will have to do a study and understand the waste. But to give and some idea, you know, what is interesting is being observed is as the age of waste is increasing, you know, there is a decrease in the phi value that is being observed for initial some time, but you know there is a zone where you have overlap here, you know, where the phi value is typically in between for higher, or this is the cohesion and friction angle, you know, and where there are laboratory test, field test, and these are typically a range of phi value being recommended, could be 15 to 25. But again, as I said, these are for particular sites being referred by researchers, but similar analysis could be carried out and understood the geotechnical parameters. So there is no straight way answer to start. This is the C5 value you can take because the kind of waste generated in, let's say, in Delhi area could be different, Mumbai could be different, of Chennai it could be different. When this data could be outside, so even country-wise there is a change in the kind of waste being generated, and some cities may have segregated waste, some cities may not. So again, there will be variation in that. So, but you can study these geotechnical parameters for particular site, estimate these parameters, and use this in the reinforced soil structure. So I think this we have already discussed. So just to show you some example what we just talked. So this is a disposal plant type 2 landfill. This is non-hazardous type. This was from Switzerland. So here basically a reinforced soil structure was used to maximize the capacity of landfill, and basically here uh, it was possible to use the paragrids, basically geogrids, to maximize the storage of this waste that was getting generated. So you can see here the white color sheet, what you are basically see are the geotextile black color, but this here on the top, these are the geogrids. They are being used as the reinforced soil slopes for retaining the waste. This is another case from built in 1997, and here basically you will see what I was talking. Waste is being stabilized with geogrids. So the instead of soil, the waste itself is being used as the filling material. And you can see here, this is the geogrids wrapped around and being put as the reinforced soil structure. So you will see here concrete blocks or panels which you see typically are not being used. The reason being, here you will have high settlement. So you will need a really a flexible fascia. So you can wrap geogrid itself, or you can use a double twisted wire mesh which are flexible. This is another case of landfill from Italy, where wraparound system is being. So this is basically reinforced structure. At the back you have landfill area. Okay, so I will just switch back to the previous presentation. Yeah. So when we have discussed about this reinforced soil structure, now coming back to issue of replacement of 1 meter thick clay to maybe a 5 millimeter thick GCL, how it's possible. So you can just simply have the permeability of the clay as well as permeability of this GCL. You know the thicknesses, you can calculate the permeation time for these clays as well as GCL, and you can really work out the equivalency of the this GCL versus the clay, or clay versus GCL. It's quite possible. So I will just keep this. We already talked, like when we have impermeable layers, we can use GCLs or geomembranes, separation filtrations instead of sand, geotextile. I will just keep this. There are various geosynthetic products like geosynthetic clay liners, membranes, PE1 membranes, non-woven geotextile, drainage composite, woven polypropylene, geobricks, geomats, biomats. All these are used in the reinforced soils. I would say the landfill itself is possible. So if we have to compare the clay liners, here you can use bentonite in the GCS, whereas in CCS you can use native soil. Adding the bentonite, hydraulic conductivity of GCS could be 10 to the power minus 9 or 10. Here it could be 10 to the power minus 7. Thickness could be 7 to 10 mm or 5 to 10, 300 to 900 mm. GCLs are rapid and simple installation. CCLs difficult to, because of the difficulty in compaction, they are slow. Especially on slopes, it's challenging. GCLs are being factory made, whereas CCLs you are naturally materials, so you will need to ensure some proper stringent quality checks at site. It's possible, so it's commonly used, but it's only easiness of using GCLs compared to the CCLs. Have a issue of desiccation. CCLs are typically nearly saturated and can desiccate during construction. That's one of the issues. Even also another issue is of 1 meter thick clay. The stability of it on slopes could be a challenge when you have sufficient moisture in that. Gravel and geocomposite. So when you are using gravel layers, you need to have properly inverted filter. Again, a natural material quality would be, we need to ensure from sourcing to replacement, and there are possibilities of human errors, whereas in geocomposite you have high consistency, quality can be maintained. Ease of construction is better in geocomposite compared to gravel filter, and of course cost. Nowadays natural material cost is going high, whereas geocomposites are economical. Most important part is again less consumption of natural materials like clay or gravel is possible with geosynthetics. I want to show some examples of HDP membranes being used in India. This is a project from Ahmedabad. Here 1 meter clay is there, followed by a 1.5 mm thick geomembrane, then a drainage layer is there. Right here, I'm just showing the geomembrane installations which are being done. So on the right, what you see black color things are the geomembrane. So this was the bottom line which was being practiced, where a membrane is being put. Only a membrane part was we were involved. So this is what the geomembrane, typically a black color sheet, will 1.5 mm thick being used. This was the initial site conditions. And what I was talking about, the joining of these membranes, so this is how, you have two layers of the geomembranes. They are placed on top of each other, and you have here a welding machine which joins these two layers of these sheets together. Okay, and this is what you see, a finished site where you have a geomembrane being installed all around, and this is a drainage layer at the bottom being put. The box what you see here, the gray color box, this is basically leachate collection chamber. Another case study from again Ahmedabad area. Again, this was for the HDPE geomembrane. I will skip all this, again showing the details, how the installations are being done. So this is geomembranes laid side by side and then joined together. This is from Pinnacle Para Patarudia in West Bengal. Yeah, this is what the site condition, excavation, and then what I was talking of hot wedge welding. So basically, this is the machine which has basically two rollers on the top of the membrane and bottom of the membrane, which are being heated with the help of this equipment. And this machine travels at slow speed and joins these two sheets of the geomembrane together, and later on they're tested. This is the finished site. This is a case study from Italy of the landfill. So this is basically a capping in progress where the reinforced mat is being put for the growth of vegetation. So this is a reinforced mat being put on the capping portion. So black color is basically a synthetic mat, and the gray color mesh, what you see, the steel mesh. The purpose of this synthetic mat is to stop the erosion of the soil which is being placed on the capping for the vegetation purpose. So you can see the steep slopes, you need these mats basically to control the erosion of soil which will be placed on the top. This is a typical, you can say, drainage layer being put. So this is the pipe, this is the gravel layer. You can see here a capping system. So this is a synthetic mat. On top of that, soil is being placed. This is a geomembrane, and at the bottom you have a geocomposite drain. So the purpose of geocomposite drain here is for a gas drainage layer. Purpose of membrane is stop movement of water inside the landfill. Purpose of this geomat is for basically linear reinforcement and holding the soil and promoting the growth of vegetation. This is the top anchoring. So when you install these geosynthetic layers, at the top you have an anchored range and place it backfill into the soil, so that with this anchorage, this geosynthetic layers doesn't slide down. And this is what the finished slide. This is another photograph showing different layers. This is a geosynthetic mat, drainage layer. Then you have a GCL layer. This is basically geosynthetic clay liner. So this is the capping in place on the landfill. So nowadays I have seen use of these geosynthetics in India, but still there is a large scope of, or I would say big scope of improvement for engineered landfills in India. So overall, geosynthetics, cost effective, easy to handle. Geogrids, geostrips can be used for, soil in the landfills. Of course, these soil reinforcement provide adequate slope stability. You can use wire or jute mats on the top also of the landfill for growth of vegetation instead of synthetic. Overall, geosynthetics can help the faster construction as well as easier construction. With this, I want to end my presentation here. Thank you very much for patiently listening. And you can contact me on this email address. Thank you. So I hand over to Dr. Hamanta.
So thank you, Dr. Ratnakar, for very elaborative session. It was detailing even the geosynthetic liners and even on-site several landfills that is being laid on-site. I am sure that it has several take-home messages for the participants here. Thank you, Dr. Ratnakar, once again on behalf of the organizing committee of this short-term course. Now I would request to ask quickly 1 or 2 questions from the participants, if you have.
Yeah, hi, Dr. Ramya, can I go ahead?
Yes, please.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Dr. Ratnakar. This was wonderful presentation. I thoroughly enjoyed it. There was so much learning in this presentation. I have a quick doubt, like when we, like you showed the advantage and disadvantages of compacted clay liner and geomembrane like that. So what is the typical range of permeability which may vary in the field while we are constructing the clay liner?
Okay, so I think when we are typically estimating this permeability of clays, clay liners or even GCLs or rather say both of the things, we estimate these in the laboratory. But of course, when we are talking of the permeability, it's directly related to the pores or the void space. So I would say it's more or less related to the quality of construction what we do at site, typically the quality of compaction. So if you are able to achieve the desired compaction, then you are close to what you are there in the laboratory, because in laboratory we'll be doing in a small size with given efforts. But in the field, if you are achieving this compaction in a given thickness, I think you are there. So you can say directly related to the compaction efforts what you achieve in the field. If you are there, let's say 70-80%, then of the lab, you are having a big chance of variation of the permeability. So I think maybe I don't have proper data with me as far as the compaction versus permeability, but that could be a area where if someone can share throw some light on the compaction of clay versus the permeability, you will get an idea. Overall, I would say compaction and the field proper compaction will be nearly there. But I don't have really idea, because on the field, how exactly you are going to check the permeability of clay like this.
Okay, Dr. Ratnakar. Thank you very much. That's all from my side, Dr. Ramya.
Hello,
Thank
sir.
you. We have, yeah, please.
Sir, can you tell about the geosynthetics that you are using for landfill capping? Are they able to reduce the leakage of gases, or we have to look for another technology?
Can you please repeat the question? Leakage of?
Gases, sir. So like methane gas.
Yeah,
which is
gases.
leaking.
Okay, gases. Okay, clear. So if you see the top lining system, what you have is the waste, then you have basically for gas collection, followed by you have impermeable layer of soil or a geomembrane. So the geocomposite drain basically will have low resistance to the liquids or fluids, whereas you put a soil as well as the geomembranes, they will have higher resistance. So tendency to flow where they have least resistance. In drainage composite, it will effectively basically allow the movement of gases. Of course, there are possibilities of leakage, especially at the joints where you will have these pipes being installed for collection of the gases. So that's the only place. Otherwise, very minimal chances of gases getting leaked. A poor quality of the impermeable layer on top of them.
Okay, sir.
We have 2 comments from the participants. If they want to directly interact with Dr. Ratnakar, please.
He can address. We have a time.
Yes.
Dr. Ratnakar, so could you please see the comment box and address?
Okay. Okay, in the chat, let me just go through.
Maybe I can read out it. The first comment is from Mr. Krishnanu. He has appreciated your excellent lecture, which is essential for researchers. And the question is about the liner system. Am I audible, Dr. Ratnakar?
Yeah.
Yes. So is there any minimum liner system strength requirement? As we all know, as the amount of waste increases, overburden stress increases. So he's asking the
Yes.
minimum liner strength requirement. Yes.
Yeah. So, typically there are calculations for understanding the strength requirement of liners. But overall, if we are talking of these, let's say I talk of a geocomposite drain, it could be around 12 to 15 kilonewton per meter is more or less sufficient. When it comes to the GCLs, and depending on the site condition, of course, this, as I mentioned, these are geotextiles which can be customized, but standard could be around 15 to 20 kilonewton per meter. But as per the site requirement, this can be customized to higher strengths, could be 40-50 kilonewton per meter. So what we do is typically, let's say the critical aspect would be on the slopes. So you have these geosynthetic materials installed on slope. You have the solid waste on top of it, and you can analyze by applying a wedge of the solid waste on this synthetic material and do a check typically for sliding analysis of sliding of waste on this synthetic metal, and you can arrive at the tensile strength requirement of these materials, putting some additional factor of safeties for various factors, not only just factor of safety, but creep and all these things need to be taken care.
One other related question is, what is the approximate life of geosynthetic liners?
Okay.
This was asked by Mr. Shubhendu Shekhar.
Okay. So very good question. So this geosynthetics, as I explained, they are produced by processing the rest of the crude oil. And these materials basically are non-biodegradable. So they don't biodegrade. These materials have a weakness to UV light. So if you have synthetic materials, they are exposed to sunlight, they degrade over a period of time. The most exceptional case is the geosynthetic membranes. Typically membranes, they have very high durability. Typically you can say 10, 15 years, 20 years. So there is a substance called carbon black, which is added in these membranes to enhance their durability. So this has become very critical if you are using these membranes directly exposed to surface. Typically, let's say you are having a water pond or water body and you want to line it with a membrane, there it will be critical. As far as landfill is concerned, they are put inside the solid waste and the soil. So they don't degrade due to UV rays. They are non-biodegradable, but they are exposed to certain environment where you have leachate. So that's why, as I explained, go for polyolefins. They have very good resistance compared to other polymers. So these typical synthetic materials, they are designed for life ranging from 20 years to 100 years. The example of Infosoil, what I showed, the materials are designed for 100 years. These geocomposite drains, they are made up of geotextile as well as core made up of polyolefins. They are again designed for life ranging from 50 to let's say 20 to 100 years. So they are durable. Depending on our choice, we can use. So you can say minimum life could be 2 to 5 years. Higher could be 100 years, depending on the environmental conditions.
Okay. So thank you, Dr. Ratnakar, for accepting our invitation and giving a very valuable session. So if participants have any more query, due to lack of time, I would request you to post in the chat box, which can be addressed by Dr. Ratnakar later time. So once again, thank you, Dr. Ratnakar, for joining us.
Thank you very much to
you.
both of you, as well as IIT Bhubaneswar and the ICT for giving this opportunity. And I will share the copy of presentation. I have 2-3 presentations I will compile and send to you so that you can give it to participants. And thank you very much. Feel free to contact me.
Okay, thank you so much.